Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher here alongside Adam Caplan, and we've got what I would like to describe, Adam, as a potpourri style Inside the Birds today.
Yeah,
as we're
lots
gonna,
to cover.
we're gonna get into a lot of topics. Many of them are intertwined. A lot of them are both relative to the Eagles and the NFL, and return to work and what things are going to look like as we creep ever so closely toward the quote unquote start of training camp. You also, Adam, got a chance to speak with Torrey Smith today, so I'm curious into getting your insight on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this week, right? So you'll get some insight from that conversation. Should be very interesting. And so we got a lot to talk about. I want to remind everybody to catch our most recent Inside the Bird shows, on whatever podcast platform, because we've gotten into a lot of juicy issues that are going to come into the light pretty soon here. And that includes the return of Jason Peters, potentially, what we expect for Jalen Reagor, and all the issues that rookies and newcomers will face without a preseason. And also, we have some great interviews on our YouTube channel, Inside the Birds YouTube, that we've done recently with Brian Westbrook and NFL business analyst Andrew Brandt.
So those are everything.
Fantastic. Yeah, we've covered. Yeah. Man, you know what, Adam? I know it's a dead period, it's a drought, it's a pandemic, and we're trying our hardest to keep giving the best content that we can give.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So look, I mean, we're recording this podcast a day after we did, not even a full day after we did our YouTube video on the DeSean Jackson situation. So I want to make sure that all of our audiences basically understand what it is that you reported the other night and how it's still a situation involving the Eagles. So why don't you go ahead and repeat the biggest, juiciest news about what you learned regarding DeSean Jackson?
Yeah, and I could update kind of what I'd reported and what I know and so forth. So, there was a lot of reporting on the Jackson situation on Tuesday. I would say most of it was correct. Some of it was speculation. But what I could tell you is that we'll start with this contract, because I had some people ask me on the message board about it on our Facebook board. So it's not that the Eagles are looking to cut DeSean Jackson at all. It's that they want to know what their options are if they're not happy with the way the situation goes for the next week or so. And then they change their mind, or they go, you know what, we want to move on without him. They want to know what the recourse is. So what's happened here, there's language in every contract, and if you want to cut a player who's got guaranteed money and you're disappointed with him, you think he's violated, you look at the language. And in this case, they would look at it as conduct detrimental. And there's specific language about how you violate it. There are a bunch of points about it, and they'd have to find a point. If they want to win their argument, they'd have to find language that would match it so they could cut him and not have to pay him, because he's got $6.2 million that's fully guaranteed this season. They'd want to get out of it if they were going to cut him.
Right.
So that's the contract part. Now, as far as what they want out of DeSean, I've had this question. They want him to fully embrace equality and go away from those comments that he put on Instagram from two people, to hate mongers, quite frankly, to people who are full of hate, and just distance himself from it. And because remember, he's a team employee. He's under contract. They don't stand for, and their image is not about just a certain group of people. They're for everybody. And Jeffrey Lurie especially is the owner. I mean, he's one of the most open owners that you're going to find, which we explain on Inside the Birds TV. But just to take it a little further, that is what they are expecting him to do, because he would want to do it. He made himself look bad. DeSean did. It's not reflective of who he really is, that I know about him. But the bottom line is, it made him look awful, and and it hurt them. Jeffrey Lurie is extremely hurt by this situation, is what multiple people told me. And this, DeSean, over the next week or so, in addition to talking to a rabbi, you can't visit with them in person because of COVID, but talking to a rabbi, talking to several leaders, they just want to know that he's committed to that. He stands for what's right in this country, that we're all equals. And that's kind of the way I would sum it up. based on the intel that I have on the situation. Without, we did. I suggest, folks, if you haven't seen it, there's a very strong ITV that Geoff and I had. It was the same day that the stuff broke, so we. Although actually, DeSean put it. The comments were from Monday, and then it obviously people. The thing we didn't talk about, though, the only thing we didn't talk about on that show was how did this thing sit on Monday? No one really talked about it.
Yeah, that's a good question. He put it on his Instagram account, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm not even sure if I don't of all the platforms that we use involving social media, I think I use Instagram the least. And you and we have some people who help us out from a social media standpoint, just recently started, getting Inside the Birds on Instagram. It's just not the platform of social media that I use, because it's it's just pictures usually. There are words, obviously, but I've just never found it that useful. So if something ever happens major on Instagram, I'm going to be one of the last people to find.
Well, I happen to be following DeSean. So someone had texted me and said, "Hey, did you see what he posted?" And someone said, the SMH, shaking my head. I'm like, uh-oh, what could this be? I don't know. I'm like, when someone does that about somebody, it could be anybody. You're like, uh-oh, this might not be good. And I looked at it like twice. I'm like, oh God, what the hell? And then, I kind of kept an eye on it, but it's kind of probably like everyone else. You're like, okay, we'll see where this goes. This is not good. And then it blew up Tuesday. And then I had more time to dissect it. I'm like, wait, I should have looked at this a little bit more.
Right.
It's kind of sunk in. And then I was like, this is a major problem. And I would tell you late Tuesday morning, I would say the percentages were not looking good that he was going to be staying, because I just knew from inside NovaCare, so to speak, although not, you know what I mean? They're not in NovaCare, but inside the Eagles organization, there were some very hurt people, because they don't know DeSean like this. They don't know him by those quotes. They know him as a guy that they've known on and off for, like 13 years. And when you see another side of someone, you're like, this can't be him, right? And when I talked to the three people that, that I know that know him, kind of said that it's just not, he just wasn't thinking, and he didn't understand.
All right. So just to wrap this up for our listeners, and what important to understand is that this is not the last you're going to probably hear of this situation. We understand that from reports that DeSean is going to talk to some rabbis. He's been invited by
Holocaust Museum, I think, right?
Yes, yeah. Adelman's was the last name, and I can't remember the first.
That's great, and that I've not been there, and I have to do that. I want to see it. Right. But yeah, that's good. I mean, did they? I didn't see the report. I just saw a headline. I hope that I would assume he's accepting to go. He really should do that to get a better.
That's what it said from Mr. Adelman, I believe, from the Holocaust Museum. It said he spoke to DeSean, and that DeSean has accepted.
Good. Okay.
There. So I want to clarify for our listeners that today we do this on July 8th, Wednesday night, drops Thursday morning. That the Eagles did sign their 6th round pick today, Quez Watkins, and he is a wide receiver with speed, but that has absolutely nothing to do with DeSean Jackson. And I'm embarrassed that I have to say that.
Were people asking you, Geoff? Were some people saying something?
I didn't see someone ask me specifically, but I saw on our fantastic Inside the Birds Facebook page that other people were commenting that they were seeing it. So if that's the case, I'm just putting out the information there. I don't even really have to look too. I don't have to talk to too many people to know that. That's just the reality of the situation.
Okay.
Situation. Just like when they signed Prince Tego Wanogo many weeks ago, it was not because of any fear of Andre Dillard not getting practice time in.
No, you know why they had to do that? You know why they actually had to do it? I'm told that.
I was thinking because of his knee, but I don't know why.
No. He's an international player, and they need to make sure he had his visa.
Right.
They had you need time. Yeah. The reason why, before we move on here, the reason why these signings are taking so long around the National Football League, the Eagles are one of many teams that they want the physical to happen by their own doctor. Now, I don't know how Watkins, because he actually signed it. It's actually, I saw the NFL's transaction report. It's called the personnel notice. It was on there that he actually signed it. So I wonder how they got if they allowed him to see a neutral doctor. I don't know. But anyway, That's what I was told was holding these up, and it's not going to be a problem. They're all going to take them when they're there. They have to, and there are no issues that anyone's expecting, and they'll be in training camp, and that's what will go.
Cool. All right. Then we'll see what happens, I guess, when players start reporting and taking their own physicals. If all of a sudden first round picks start signing a little bit more, if that would make sense, because they get into their facilities, which is really something we want to get into today, because as you mentioned, or as we talked about, July 28th is the start date that has been kind of talked about for camp. But as I spoke to someone today, a personnel person, and no, this was a coaching source actually. And this coach said to me, I was once really confident that everything was going to go according to Hoyle on July 28th, and now I'm not so sure. So let's get into that a little bit because, excuse me, J.C. Tretter, who is he's a Browns center, I believe, offensive lineman, and he is the president of the Players Union. He kind of surprised me yesterday. He came out with a letter that he posted on the NFLPA website that quickly made its rounds in the media, and it kind of ripped the owners for not really prioritizing health and safety in the health and safety protocols that the two sides are trying to iron out right now before things get started. And he had some very choice words, and Stephon Diggs is someone who's talked about it. I think we have some quotes from Malik Jackson we'll get into that seem to express a sentiment that, you saw what happened in baseball, Adam, right? The players and owners couldn't agree. That was more money than it was health and safety, but they're all tied in here with the start of training camp coming. So I think we really need to look at this and wonder what path is this headed down? And do you see a lot of obstacles or just a few obstacles that are very, very passionate, that both sides are passionate about?
Yeah, I think the latter. There's some issues that they have to get through, and this is nothing new. You go back the 11 CBA, the veteran from both sides. I cover the 11 CBA for FoxSports.com, and I just remember I cannot believe the heat between two teams. It was vicious. It was awful. And I would always laugh when the league would say that the PA is, the players are their partners. Like, yeah, maybe a percentage of the revenue, but that's about it. I mean,
right.
There's been heat for both sides. D. Smith, Roger Goodell, players versus owners for years, and it's a shame. So Tretter's letter the tone is not really happy with just some of the way things have been handled. And they, some of the information that had gotten out there without their approval, which they had not even, by the way, the one part of it is that the players voted last week that they did not want any preseason games. I mean, it's in the letter. I read the letter, and the league, they didn't announce it, but it got out there first from Pro Football Talk that it's going to be 2 games. But here's what we do know. It's either going to be 0, 1, or 2 games in preseason. It won't be more than 2.
Right.
There's some challenges in scheduling there, by the way. Which games you're going to drop weeks 1 and 4. And then, talking to coaches about it this week, they have to kind of structure how much playing time they're going to have for the veterans, if at all, and the rookies, because the rookies didn't have an off season. And we're going to get into it in a couple minutes here. The challenges the coaches are telling me they're learning a little bit more about it. They don't have a lot of information, which is really bothering them, by the way, that the league is not really, right. Now the league's answer, one of the coaches told me, is that they don't, because things have not been ironed out yet, they don't want to tell them something that's going to change. And that's fair.
Yeah.
We're still 2.5 weeks out until practices start. So it's not a big deal, but coaches are so regimented. They want to know everything in advance, all that stuff. So, but getting back to Tretter, he's new to this, by the way. He's been with the PA for a while, but now he replaces Eric Winston, former offensive lineman who retired. And Tretter here is, he's expressing his issues. And then Stephon Diggs went on Twitter and he expressed his trepidation about training camp. And by the way, you're seeing more players do it. NBA players talking about being in the bubble have said it. How about Mike Trout in Major League Baseball? He's concerned because he's having his first kid about going back home. And these are real life issues, man. This is some pretty serious stuff.
Do you think there will be some players, just like with baseball? It seems like 98% of baseball players are playing, but there are a few bigger names that opted out. We saw Mike Leake, we saw Ian Desmond, we've seen Brian Zimmerman, a semi-decent name, big name in in baseball sit out. Do you feel like there will be a handful of NFL players that just decide to sit out?
Well, here's the issue. If you decide to sit out, does that mean that not only will
You not get paid that season?
Mm-hmm.
No players yet have said they don't want to play this, so they're not going to play. And if you do that, if you got a signing bonus, you have to give some of it back because it's prorated.
That's a good point.
And that's just something to think about. There's so many things that have come up with me with agents and coaches lately that, I mean, here's one, Geoff, as we move on to the coach training camp and coaches stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is crazy. I had not even thought about this. This is the kind of stuff that comes up. This coordinator told me this week, he goes, what if I'm ill and my right-hand man is ill, that we have to be quarantined for 2 weeks? Who the hell's going to run our defense that week?
That's a good point. And it wouldn't really take both being
or
ill,
2
correct?
weeks.
It would take one person testing positive, and then contact tracing would say, well, this person were right next to you. They're going to have to at least wait.
Oh, right. Great point. Oh, God. So, Geoff, what Geoff's saying is those people who were in contact with that coach or those coaches would actually have to self-quarantine.
You would think.
This is going to be like, this is not Major League Baseball coaching where you got a first base coach, a third base coach, a manager, and a bench coach. You've got some teams, 20 coaches, 25 coaches.
Absolutely.
So this is, if you include the strength and conditioning coaches, Geoff, I was blown away with this guy's telling me, he's like, it's on his mind. He said he needs to get an answer from his head coach and his GM. And I'm like, wow, man, you better make that public, man, to your people. You need to find that out. I had not even thought about that. And it's, because he had asked me, do you know anything what's going to happen if the quarterbacks get or ill? I'm like, well, in season, you've got the game day, because of the new CBA, you go from 53 to 55, and one could be a quarterback, where you could sign a player off your quarterback off your practice squad. But again, if the outbreak happens, then you've got issues. So, Geoff, here's another question: are we absolutely sure we're starting on July 28th?
No, and like I mentioned, that coaching source who told me at one point he was very positive that they were, and now he's starting to lose confidence. You're hearing this from a lot of people that you speak to. I spoke to a personnel person a couple of days ago and just, kind of tried to get his feel on whether things were going to start up. And I swear to God, Adam, I know he's trying to be tongue in cheek, but he's also real in what he said. He just said, call me in 2021. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was his way of saying there's just too many unanswered questions for anybody
know what it's going to look like
to right now tell you when things are going to start, what it's going to look like, who's going to be playing, who's not going to be playing, how many fans. It's just not feasible right now to have anything concretely answered.
Let me follow up this. What did your source tell you? What was his source of concern for not starting on the 28th?
Because he felt like there were too many issues all of a sudden that needed to be hammered out between the league and between the players. I was going to get into that a little bit later on, but I'll foreshadow right now. I don't think we're thinking, and clearly I wasn't, of exactly how different things are going to be once this agreement is hammered out. I mean, we're already understanding that training camp and social distancing and having meetings at the link and doing what you can do to follow these protocols and no preseason games potentially, right? We have to start actually thinking about how practice itself is going to be run, and maybe even getting used to the idea that, say, 11 on 11s, right, may not be a thing in training camp because they may try to be limiting how often you are side by side with somebody else. So 11, or how much contact you're going to wind up having in multiple practices in camp. So 11 and 11s are important for linemen, for the whole team, but especially for linemen. They got to get that trench feeling, especially if there's no preseason games, right? Well, if you turn every NFL team's training camp into a 7-on-7 passing camp, like that's basically just OTAs.
Well, guess what? Malik Jackson addressed exactly what you're talking about.
He did.
This is interesting. I'm gonna read a little bit here because it fits so well into what we're talking about. Here's what Malik Jackson said first about.
Wait, Adam, before you do.
Sure.
This is a perfect time, and I'm sorry for the cliffhanger, but I think it's a really good time for us to just just tell everybody about our friends at DraftKings and download the DraftKings Sportsbook and Casino app now and use the promo code ITB to play up to $200 at casino games risk-free. Promo code ITB to play risk-free up to $200 for your first 24 hours of casino play on DraftKings Sportsbook. Got to be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only, in partnership with Hollywood Casino and Penn National Racecourse. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay. Let's go ahead with that Malik Jackson quote.
Yeah, how about this? So this is from his IG. I cannot pass rush from 6 feet away. I cannot defeat a double team from 6 feet away, nor can I tackle somebody from 6 feet away. In parentheses, to not do those things in practice just in games is asinine.
Mm-hmm.
This sport is not in any way able to be played 6 feet away, let alone stop the transfer of sweat and blood. Respectfully, every owner is over 40. Yeah, I believe that. No, not Jed York is not the Niners owner, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And understandable, will probably not be out there with us on the field nor in the building. I ask in this moment, you see us as people, not financial burdens or roster spots. Health is wealth for both parties. Yeah, I right on, man. Now the only thing is,
mm-hmm.
You'd mentioned about 11 on 11 and maybe not having it. It's not been cleared up yet the way the practice is going to look like as we get into that. I talked to a defensive coordinator this week who he said the thing that he said was, because he doesn't even know what practice is going to be like. The first thing they're not going to do, he's not going to overload the players in camp because, first of all, with the rookies, Geoff, coming in, this really applies to both sides of the football. They could only go by their college tape. They have no idea because they didn't have an offseason. Geoff, we had not talked about this before. This is fascinating. This guy goes, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take what I thought they can do, because he said, we're going to scale down everything. We're not going to do anything close to what I thought we were going to do. We only give them stuff that we know they could do off tape from college.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, although there was, obviously they had the virtual off season and they did teach them stuff. They went over some stuff, but he goes, some of that stuff we're just not going to use because we don't know how long camp's going to be. We don't know how much time we're going to have in preseason. He goes, we have to be proactive. We can't just assume we're going to have any time. And he had a great line to me. He said, if you do too much, you have lost your first game of the regular season without even playing one, because you're putting too much on their plate and they're not going to be able to function.
Mm-hmm.
And this coach happened to be coaching in 2011. But he goes, this one's a little bit different because the challenges are different. He goes, yeah, the players didn't have their playbooks then, but the challenges now are different. And remember, practices were the structures were different in 11. But you got to be careful, man. I had not thought of it in the way that this guy described it, Geoff. So now, as far as practices, what else did you hear about what practice could look like?
Well, I was just using that as an example because what I'm trying to say is that until there's a protocol in place, until coaches and players know what they can and can't do and what has been agreed upon between the league and the players union, how can Doug Peterson know exactly how he's going to run practice? And it's, yes, you can say, well, today's July 8th, the starting date is 28th. That's 20 days. That's 3 weeks. You know how meticulous coaches are. I mean, most of them have their practice regimen from day one to the last day already set way in advance. They're ready to go.
Right,
they don't want to have all this. And then listen, I mean, everybody has to deal with it. I'm just saying that the longer that the league and the players take to come to an agreement and get something concrete in writing so that the league and the players can follow by it, the more unhappiness you're going to see, the more quotes like this from Malik Jackson you're going to see. I'm sure you'll see some quotes from head coaches come out and say, I need to start running a training camp. I need to have a playbook. I can't just show up 2 days before without knowing what I am allowed and not allowed to do and expect to be able to hit the ground running.
Good point. You're right. You're right.
This stuff has got to get done soon.
It does. And the PA and NFL continue to talk and try to iron stuff out. Here's what every team knows now already about the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, who could be at camp, who can't, who could be on the field, who can't be.
Mm-hmm.
They know that there's distancing. They know all about that stuff, but the coaches want to know how they could structure practices.
Right.
Because they're real regimented, man, about their time and stuff. So,
there's also a report, Adam, about the financials. So let's talk about that because that factors in too.
From NFL
I
Network.
apologize for interrupting you. I just wanted to make sure.
Go
I
ahead.
remember.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Before we do that, I want to remind everybody, our friends at PHLSportsNation.com are continuing to enhance the fan experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams, all 4 major Philadelphia sports teams, like nobody else. For the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. Follow them on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation, or go to their fantastic website, PHLSportsNation.com. We're also going to pause one more second for another word from our great sponsors. All right, Adam, one thing that might be standing in the way here of even more progression that we're talking about in these discussions, there was a report, I believe, from Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network that the NFL owners were proposing that players surrender 35% of their salary for escrow to cover any costs that may be necessitated by a loss of revenue, right? Or
right. Anything that comes up. Right.
So now you're asking the players who are assuming all of the health and safety risks, right, compared to the owners, to take 35% of their salary and just kind of put it off. And what were to happen? I'm sure they're all thinking, well, wait a minute, if the league shuts down or if there's a real big issue, we never see that money back, but we're assuming all the risks.
Correct. Yeah. So agents have been on this for a couple of weeks.
A couple of them mentioned to me, goes, they're waiting for the league to ask them for money. And they're going to tell their players, don't go, don't agree to this. You just nailed it. It's the risk that the players are taking. Now, obviously, we saw in Major League Baseball how ugly it got, and then they came to resolution. Scott Boras, the big time agent of all of them, he recommended that they stick by their agreement in March. This one will be interesting. Look, it's just being proposed. It doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Right.
But you have to, from a league standpoint, you have to be ready for major loss of money. That reminds you, let's get into one more point before we move on to our next segment on versatility of some of the challenges of players that we know about. But this plays into, Geoff, NFL teams are now starting to admit what we already knew. Every team, they don't need to say it. I'll say it for them. No team will play in front of more than 50% capacity. It's probably going to be, again, this is just an estimate. This is just a guess. It could be 10,000 people, 15,000 people, which obviously is 60 to 70% less per stadium. And then here's another thing, and I brought up the NFL's rule of equity a couple months ago. You can have one team having fans in and the other team you can't. That's not going to work, right?
No, it makes no sense.
Right.
But I don't get the feeling that that's concrete right now. It should be. You take a team like Arizona, they play indoors. But they
could take this. They have a
roof. They could take.
Well, that's a good point. I forgot about that. All right, let me get Indianapolis. They play indoors.
They have a roof. They have a roof.
Is there anybody that doesn't have a retractable roof that I can?
I don't know.
As an example.
New Orleans.
New Orleans. All right. Thank you. So you take a team like the New Orleans Saints. They play indoors. They don't have a roof. And I believe Louisiana.
They have a roof, but you can't open it. Yeah.
Well, you can't open it, of course. Not a retractable roof.
Correct.
And is Louisiana one of the states where they've seen spikes? I'd have to check on that.
Well, it's funny. Either the governor, mayor, I can't remember,
from New Orleans. It's funny you bring that up. He actually talked about that maybe a month or 6 weeks ago about how he thought that they still would be able to have fans, but with a reduced capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So the bottom line is every game will have a reduced capacity if they have fans at all. But the NFL, if they don't have fans, by the way, the Eagles were one of a bunch of teams to get in front of this. And to be fair, they're giving their season ticket holders the option of not going to games this year and moving their money over to 2021. But some of the fans have said, yeah, I get that, but we don't want them to have their money. We want our money back. So we don't want them holding our money, getting interest on it. I get it. But the fact of the matter is they're starting to get out in front of it and admit what we already knew. There's no way you're having a lot of fans if you have fans at all.
Right. And I really hope that throughout the season, you can't have a situation where a team's got like a couple thousand fans and then another team has zero. Right. I just think that's not right. Yeah,
right.
I agree.
And believe me, I've just talking to teams over the years.
They cannot stand it, although it may be small, where there's some sort of advantage. Not talking about crowd. It could be anything little, where something with the rules that they think that clubs are take advantage of rules that have loopholes. Whatever it is, This one is big because, man, Seattle. Can you imagine? Seattle's the best home field advantage. Kansas City's probably second. We could, that's debatable, but I'm just telling you, that will not go over well. Seattle could have 30,000, and the Cardinals, who are in the same division, can't have any. No, that's not going to work. That'll never happen because those GMs will fight tooth and nail to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, it's that will be in itself. That would be a pretty ugly fight if that were to happen. I want to move on and talk a little bit about the advantages certain teams, and I think the Eagles fall into this, right? We've already mentioned that teams that have a coaching staff in place for a couple of years, or like the Eagles do, are going to have an advantage. We've said that teams that have a quarterback in place, like the Eagles do, are going to have an advantage over those like the Bengals who want to start Joe Burrow, right? Because they're going to know the playbook. I think the Eagles, though, I wonder about the advantage they'll have compared to other teams with the versatility. And when I say that, I mean a couple of people I've spoken to in the NFL said this year more than others, they think that the more versatile players you have, the better, because you might wind up losing a lot of players on the fly because of COVID or whatever. And you may have to make some really quick adjustments with your team, your offense or your defense. The Eagles have some versatile players, but to be honest with you, they lost their most versatile player when they let Malcolm Jenkins go. So you look at their roster right now, and I don't know, I'd have to compare it to another one, Adam, and pull it up, but I don't know where the Eagles fall. They do have some versatile players in the secondary, but not at linebacker.
Yeah, linebacker.
Yeah, because they're so weak at linebacker. You don't have a lot of guys who can move around. I mean, Duke Riley could play either outside position. T.J. Edwards really is a Mike. Jatavis Brown probably could play two out of the three positions, but he's a new player. But I'll tell you how it'll help, though, versatility, especially if some of the rookies can't play or are not sure what they're doing, or even the second or third year players who they were counting on are not ready. You better have other guys like Will Parks, who's a multi-position player. He's in the box safety. You can play him deep. Guys who could play either safety position, or a guy like Maddox who could play slot corner or outside corner, or Malik Jackson who could play, and if you need him to, but really is a D tackle.
Right.
Or guys who can move inside a nickel. If you not that the Eagles that nickel role, the DN sliding inside is probably done if everybody's healthy for the season. But if you need it, you have it. Wide receiver, Geoff, you need guys who could play X, Z. The slot position is called F, not Y, just for sake of this discussion. I know people in our show love the technical stuff. The West Coast position in slot is not the Y. It's actually the F position. There's an F tight end position as well that some teams use
for flex, kind of flex.
Well, the F position in tight end is a flex position. It's typically a move position.
Yeah.
The Y is the tight end stationary position.
Right.
But getting back to your point about versatility, it's real important because not just because of injury, but because of COVID. But the problem is, though, here's the problem. Because you haven't had exposure to these younger players, particularly rookies, this is supposed to be the big offseason for some of these second-year guys. Getting Nate Herbig more used to getting more snaps in practice. Back to Kelsey, because maybe he's Kelsey's successor. Obviously, getting Andre Dillard snaps in the offseason, seeing where he is physically, though he's put weight on. You don't have these answers, man. It's a real shame. And you're right, where you say the Eagles are the only team. I mean, they're not the only team. All 30 teams are going through this, but the Eagles, because they're getting so young, which is a good thing, but you don't have answers, man. That's why having good veterans who are smart, who know what the hell they're doing, and having it. But I will say this, having a staff that mostly returns, that is really key, because the other team staffs are new.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of their biggest advantages. And I think the Cowboys got a little lucky in the fact that they kept their offensive coordinator. So
yes,
they have some pieces in place there, and they're not starting new with a completely new offense. So that helps them. I do, though, go back to linebacker, Adam, and I'd be concerned. You mentioned it. T.J. Edwards is really a natural Mike, and some of the other guys you mentioned, Jatavis Brown and Duke Riley and even Nate Gary, they're more of an outside, either a weak or a strong. Let's say T.J. Edwards is going to miss a few weeks. Forget COVID. let's just say he pulls a muscle, right?
I don't know.
Who's playing Mike linebacker?
You had to go there. You had
to go there. I don't know.
And,
I don't know.
And what complicates it,
Dante Olson? I mean,
well, that's what I was about to get to. If they wind up trimming the rosters from 90 to 75 or 90 to 80,
that's another issue.
Dante
by the
Olson
way,
might not even be on the team.
Agents are up. Okay, we need to
talk about this real quick before we move on. I'm glad you brought that up. There are a couple of guys in particular so up in arms about this potential of happening. It's only a discussion. We know that the roster is going to be trimmed. They want to know are you actually going to cut them, or are they going to be in a practice squad for training camp where they won't practice with the 75-man roster? They're going to practice on adjacent field. They're still going to be able to get some reps, but they're just not get the work they normally would. How in the world could you start cutting guys? Like, this is absurd.
I honestly don't know. I don't even know. In the case of TJ Edwards and Dante Olson, how Bennett, Edwards gets hurt and Olson was on the practice squad. Okay, now you got to start next week. Well, you got 5 days to coach this guy up, a rookie free agent.
That's the point.
Right, that's the point. Like, again, you mentioned if Edwards gets hurt, they got
to sign somebody.
Are you going to expand the rosters for training? Like, okay, you're going to trim it to anywhere from 70 to 80, okay? Because for distancing.
Mm-hmm.
But that does not help for the level of play. And I get it's about safety, but what are you going to do to not hurt the player's career? Like, this is an important thing that has not been discussed enough. Like, I'd mentioned how badly the Eagles want to take a look at Holyfield. He's of the 3 undrafted free agents, 2 of this year, Michael Warren and Killens. Holyfield from last year obviously was from the Panthers practice squad, but he was undrafted.
Mm-hmm.
Holyfield is a guy they really feel has a future if we had a normal offseason, but since we don't, we may not even know about it. He may not make this cut if they have to cut down to 75. Who knows?
I think they got to sign a linebacker, a veteran. They got to sign someone who knows how to play all 3 positions, or at least the middle, because I just don't know if you can go in with just TJ Edwards as your only natural Mike.
Yes,
I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, your only natural Mike, right?
Once Howie Roseman knows the rules about if they're going to have to release players or put them to the side, but they'll still be part of the team, but not part of the 75. That's the difference. They got to know here. Malik Jackson put out his thing on IG. Coaches that I've spoken to, they don't know what the rules of engagement are. They just know about they're going to have to distance in meetings. They're going to be they're going to have to be in open space. They get all that. They're okay with it. Like, they understand it's for safety. Coaches are resilient. They'll figure out a way. But what they don't want is to be put in – they don't want something that's going to hurt. See, this is where coaches come in their careers. They are concerned about if you're going to dump 15 of our players, and you just mentioned it, what if the Eagles are so light at linebacker? What if it's a guy like Olson, who the Eagles really want to see if he can be Edwards' backup? Then, to your point, they're going to have to go out and sign a guy.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know how you got through this. I really don't.
There are moves that are going to be made, and obviously we'll try to figure them all out as we get closer to it. Last thing I want to get to, someone brought it up on our Inside the Birds Facebook group page. I thought it was a really interesting question, Adam. I forgot to write the name down, so I apologize. But the point was, if you go back to 2018 when they had all those injuries in the secondary, and Malcolm Jenkins told Jim Schwartz, why don't we just simplify the defense? Let's not put a lot on these young guys' plates and let them play freely. And so Jim did that. The rest is history. They rallied, they made the playoffs, beat Chicago and everything like that. So someone's saying, with all these changes and with all the limitations that we might see this year and COVID-related stuff, doesn't it make the point to, or doesn't it make sense, Adam, to just keep things simple, both offensively and defensively for these rookies and newcomers?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, yes, it does, but that also detours some of their plans to do some interesting things with.
Oh yeah,
and Hurts
and that you're right. And this is, I either mentioned that to you. I know you and I talked about it off the air within the last couple of weeks about what happens if they have to scale back training camp, which this defensive coordinator told me that he's going to keep it simple. He's going to trim. They have to have an install. Well, you reinstall your offensive defenses training camp. But he goes, it's to the point now because he doesn't know what to expect from these rookies that he's just not going to get. They're going to have to change some things. And yeah, it on Schwartz. We'll start with him. all the stuff that they wanted to do, they may only be able to do the pro snap disguise, which had to improve this season. I don't know how much you could put on a guy's plate if you haven't had on the field enough. Now Schwartz will make the decision once he evaluates whenever, if training camp is 5 weeks instead of the usual 2.5, 3, whatever it is, he'll make a decision with his defensive coaches and see if he thinks they're ready. If they're not, he's just going to have to scale it back. And I don't know what that would look like. That's the other problem. When you scale it back, I don't know what you think you can do as a coach and not do. This is something that, Schwartz obviously was coaching in 11. He was the head coach of the Lions, but it's hard, as you were saying earlier in our show. How do you put a game plan together for training camp if you don't know? So what's going to happen is they're going to know in a week or 10 days, okay, here are all the rules. Here you go. Here's what you can do. Now you've got a week to figure it out.
Yeah. What a mess. Oh, man.
It is. It is.
You and I spent so much time talking to coaches, talking to players, but really, like when we go to the combine, we talk to coaches and executives from other teams. Some we know, some we don't. And the one common bond I think you and I agree on was just how meticulous they are with their planning. How what's the word I'm looking for? How they're creatures of habit to the highest degree.
Regimented, man.
So regimented. And they have got, and Andy Reid, I always knew Andy to have just everything budgeted to the last
second, man.
And I can only imagine what this is like for these guys.
By the way,
no idea what they're going to be able to do.
By the way, exactly. One of the things I find so funny, like the PR staffs of every team they let you know what time practice is. Okay, the practice day is starting at 9:37.
Yes.
Where are you coming up? It's like, what?
People think we're being if people think
it's true. I'm not making it up. No, it's really funny. But one thing I do want to add, I talked to Torrey Smith this week. By the way, if you're hearing us at 6 a.m. Eastern on Thursday, you could actually hear the replay. Torrey is co-hosting on Sirius NFL Radio with Jordan Palmer, and Torrey told me a story about, he was a rookie coming out of lockout in 11. He goes, hey man, he said he talked to some of the rookie receivers for the Ravens lately. He goes, hey, just so you know, I didn't have a playbook when I was a rookie. You guys at least have a playbook. He's, I don't want to hear any excuses. I thought that was funny the way he told it. Great dude. And he's great stories. He had some great stories about the Eagles Super Bowl run. Some I knew, and some I didn't know about. By the flea flicker, the flea flicker against the Vikings. He was not the option on that play. It was actually Alshon Jeffrey.
Oh wow, how about that?
Yeah. It's just the way that the regression went, and I can't remember exactly the way he explained it, but the thing that I took out of it was that he was not the primary option. But I said, Torrey, I don't know how the hell. I was like, we were talking about being in a zone. You know what? Zach Ertz told me last year that Nick was possessed. He was so on it. It's like the zone. You hear about Jordan, Carson Wentz in 2017 was certainly in the zone for most games. There's something about athletes when they got it going on, man. It's like, when the no hit, when the pitcher's got a no hitter going, you stay away from him.
Yes.
It's like you probably leave the quarterback alone. You're in a zone. I'm not going to say a word to you, man. It's cool. Pretty cool.
Nick is such a loving guy. Why isn't anybody talking to me? I'm sure he was.
Right. It was pretty cool. Torrey's a great dude, and I look forward to talking to him again. In fact, I'm going to ask him to come on ITV TV with us. Hopefully he'll do it.
That'll be great. That'll be
great guy and great storyteller, and check that out. But good show. I really enjoyed this. This was, folks, if you take anything out of the show as the challenges that players and coaches have and front offices have, this is not easy. As they've said, it's unprecedented times, and it really is for them. But they're, as you said, Geoff, they're creatures of habit. They'll figure out a way, but it's certainly not going to be easy.
Yeah, no doubt. In fact, now I feel like going back in light of what you just said about Torrey and looking at the 2011 draft class and seeing how those players did as rookies.
Good point.
I already know what happened with the Eagles rookie that year. I don't have to check on that. That was a disaster, but
I don't even know. Who was it?
Come on.
I'm doing badly. I don't know. 11. I don't
Let's just say it didn't work out very well for that right guard from Baylor.
Oh, the hockey player. Yeah. And was that the Jack Ikeguanu draft? Maybe it's before that. I don't know.
I thought, I think Ikeguanu came way before that.
They had Emil Iguanagu. I mean,
Emil was a good tight end.
Good, yeah. He was as a fullback.
Yeah, a little H-back type
I'm
player.
trying to think of the guys, 10 or 11. 11.
I believe that was the year Cam Newton was a rookie, right?
Yes. Oh, Ike Iguana was before that out of Wisconsin. He was the kid who had the ACL and some off-the-field issue.
Yes, he was the cornerback out of Wisconsin.
And Iguanago was an undrafted free agent out of UMass. I should know that, but I love the lower end players. I don't know. Michael Gasperson is my favorite name of all time. Like
Michael Gasperson.
A new name I've never heard. It's like,
By the way, I just
go ahead. Go ahead. A flashback. Do you have a flashback? Go ahead.
No, I was just actually looking at the 2011 draft class, and I don't. Some of these guys actually had really good rookie years. Cam Newton had a really good rookie year.
Wait a minute. Go Eagles. Okay, before we get out of here, what was the Eagles draft class 11? Do you know
it offhand?
It was Danny Watkins in the first round, and it was oh god.
All right, Casey Matthews was in that one, was he not?
Yeah, Jaquan Jarrett in the second round.
They learned you do not draft box safeties in the second round. Keep going.
It gets worse, my friend. This was not a good draft. Curtis Marsh in the third round.
Utah,
Utah State or Utah, who was an athlete, but not a good football player. Okay.
Correct. Casey Matthews in the fourth round.
Oh, and Trevard Lindley, the corner
from Kentucky.
Alex Henry.
Oh, I know Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, Alex Henry
from Nebraska.
He actually had a decent rookie year, but wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Any other time after that.
Who, by the way, told me he was shocked that
the Eagles drafted him that high. Keep going.
Deion Lewis in the fifth round. Good.
Yeah,
good
but with the problem, he
wasn't good fit for them. He was so immature, they got rid of him, and then he started his career in Cleveland and started to take off once he matured.
Here's another great name.
Lindley.
Great.
Wait, was Lindley in that draft? Was it?
No, I think that was the year before.
Oh, go ahead.
Also in the fifth round, guard from Iowa. He has been an Eagle about 7 different times.
Julian Vandervelde.
Yes, Julian
the Batman, or what did he call himself?
Yes, the Batman.
Matt Vandervelde. Yeah, he's a great dude. I like Julian. Yeah,
he was.
What a bad draft.
He has signed more contracts with the Eagles than any other player in the team history.
That was, and I know it was Roseman's only second year. That was the worst. Like, did anyone make it? Did I miss anyone?
6th round pick, a linebacker out of Ohio State.
No, wait. What year
was Kelsey? 11 or 10?
10.
Okay.
Brian Roll from Ohio State.
Super small player, right? Tiny. Yeah, he was too small. He missed. Yeah.
Is this the worst draft of all time?
That was terrible. Danny Watkins. I'll say this of
Watkins. To everyone's credit, so the guys there that year, I've talked to just about everyone from privately. They all admit that they missed, and they admitted what they missed. It was the Senior Bowl. They put too much importance on it. Like over the years, some guys won't take responsibility. That one they all do. They all agreed. No one was against it.
Right.
Like you know how some teams are. They're I didn't want them. I didn't know that was not that pick. I know Howard Mudd had some stuff. I don't know Howard Mudd, but I heard that first couple weeks of practice when they had him was interesting. That Danny Watkins pick, someone needs to write that would be like a 30 for 30 episode, man.
Yeah, I did miss one pick, and you were correct. 2 picks before Julian Vandervelde. I'm sorry, 2 picks before Brian Roll in the 6th round. Okay. They did take Jason Kelsey.
No, then okay. They got draft overall, but they might have had
the best center in their history. So okay, that actually saved that draft. Oh my god.
Yeah, and then it was Greg Lloyd and Stanley Havili in the 7th round.
Havili, a fullback from Hawaii or somewhere, yeah.
USC. I think he's Hawaiian, but he went to USC. Yeah.
Stan Havili, yeah.
I remember.
Oh my god, Jason Kelsey saved this.
Oh my god,
he didn't save the draft. It was still it was a disaster.
It was bad, but
it was a disaster.
Yeah, I love these. One of these days,
you know what we're gonna do, folks? Soon we're gonna start having positional previews for training camp. I'm so into what we were just talking about, Geoff, because I need a laugh. It's been a stressful week. I love it. Just the scrubs that the Eagles have had over the years. I just find it comical. I would love to. Ruben Frank and I would. Ruben has been covering the team for like 35 years. We would test each other. What's that?
I said longer.
Right. We would bring up guys. He would go to me. Do you remember this guy? I'm like, oh my god, Bruce Walker. With the Ginsu knives, that's another story.
Sure. That's another story. Just crazy stuff that's happened with Eagle draft picks over the years. And this is for you old timers. I'm going to save one more for you, for guys who are over 50. See if you remember, if you're on our Facebook page, see if you remember Gus the Kicking Mule. without looking it up. And do you know what that is, Geoff?
I've heard the story. I wasn't.
What is
obviously
it? Go
around.
ahead. What is it? See if you know. See if your recall's good. Do you know who that was?
I can't remember. Like it's a player, right?
Yeah.
They called him Gus the Kicking Mule, but I cannot remember why.
All right. I'm gonna give you one hint. Buddy Ryan and a farm.
Oh yes. Okay, I remember now. Is this where he threw the bull's testicles at the player?
No.
The mule's testicles? No.
What? I don't even know that one. I never heard that.
You never heard that one?
No, that's disgusting. I don't want to look at that one. But folks, for those of you who are old enough to remember, because I know you're going to do it as you hear this, you're going to Google search it, but it's so typical of Buddy. He got in his own way. You know, one of the many reasons why he never won a playoff game, despite, by the way, he had personnel control. He was not a bad evaluator, but the problem is he just didn't listen to enough people, and someone should have talked him out of some of the stuff that he did. This one was so pathetically foolish. I don't know. There are some legendary stories that happen with Buddy Ryan that you don't believe. You go, that didn't happen, and then you look it up. And you're like, oh my God, it happened. How did this happen? Anyway, as I digress, before we get out of here, I thought that was a funny one.
All right, so you're going to leave it to people to go to Google instead of telling the full story.
You have to do it because you'll laugh your ass off. Because I want
them to laugh. This is a good one.
I got you.
It's so pathetic. It's so funny.
Can't wait to see the reaction on that, the feedback we get. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. Thank you to our producer, Hunter Brody, for dealing with us. And check out his work on YouTube, Sports Talk with Broads. Check out his podcast that he does with former Villanova basketball star Darrell Reynolds. It's called Processed. And also check out Hunter's work on Twitter at Broads81. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.